The VHS series is composed of horror anthologies starting in 2012. It was revived by Shudder after an initial 3-year run from 2012 to 2014 and has been annual again since 2021. These films usually feature lower profile or newer directors, giving them a chance to do seemingly just about anything, and that decision to give relative surprise directors a lot of freedom is probably the series' best draw. When you tune in to one of these films, you can really get anything of any quality level too, and segments will often be a little bit tongue-in-cheek, sometimes firmly planted. This is my rough ranking for the series. Most of the films to me are far from good, but it is always interesting to see what some of these given directors come up with, and that's why I keep tuning in despite giving them fairly low ratings. This year's entry is called VHS Halloween. It has 5 segments as well as a wraparound story. Of course, the unifying theme being Halloween, and it plays with things like candy, haunted houses, candy again, haunted house again, and soda. The wraparound story is called Diet Phantasma. It follows experimental trials for a new Halloween soda called Diet Phantasma. Of course, this is no ordinary soda. I think this is the second best story in the film for me. I like the edit quite a bit, and it really balances the humor and the sort of gore and the effects and stuff like that very nicely. Times reaction shots really well. It has a couple of awesome comedy cuts, and it generally just keeps the tone just right. I do think it needed to mix up things a little bit because, you know, you get a little section between each of the stories, right? So there's like 6 parts to it in total. After the first 4 or 5, the things it was doing felt a little bit samey. It felt like it needed probably one less section to me to be a little bit better. The ending is kind of weak. Also, I just wish we'd go back around to a wraparound story that actually like ties into the segments. Like in the first couple of VHS movies, they kind of centered around people going into like a house finding these VHS movies. So it's like you break into a story because of a specific reason. In this, it's just kind of like the movie just decides like at this point, it's like, okay, we're going to show something else. I'll live, but I liked when everything was tied together better. The first proper segment is called Coochie Coochie Coo. A pair of high schoolers set out to have a memorable last Halloween before college. They end up stumbling upon a mysterious haunted house with more than they bargained for inside. This is probably my least favorite of the film, but it might be the best worst segment of the series. Some VHS films have some like appallingly bad stuff. This one is just a little weak. It's watchable. It's got its qualities. It does have one of the best moments in the film for me. The sequence where they're in front of the house and, you know, the arm reaches out from the darkness with the candy. The overall ambiance with the pulsing light, like that is awesome. I love that part. There's a couple of nice little creepy moments inside. So, you know, it's got things that keep me around and keep me interested. The 2 main characters are obnoxious and all, but that's not like an accident. But I think they fit well together. I think their dynamic makes sense. There's a decent amount of humor. It's not super serious. It's again, tongue-in-cheek a little bit. Not extremely. There are some that have the tongue very far in the cheek, but not this one. And most of the experience is just seeing the monster, seeing some of the gross stuff played out. It does a decent enough job at that, but there's just not enough there for me. But it's passable. Supra Sic Infra is the second segment. Police walk through the series of events of a deadly Halloween event with a lone survivor. This is directed by Paco Plaza, one of the minds behind Wreck, as well as the mind behind Veronica. Basically, this is the only like proven horror director on the slate, and I think it shows. It shows to me not because this is far and away the best or anything, but as one of my friends put it, it feels the most mature. It feels the most like someone in control of the medium in the way it's presented and put together. I think the strengths are in the setting, the editing for a bulk of the narrative, and a couple little surprises the film has. The main weakness is the very ending for me. Common theme you'll see among these. The main location is fun occult ideas and things like that. The main story device is awesome, very effective. We've got a split timeline for a chunk of the short, and I think the way it manages those transitions and when it chooses to have those dynamics, very well done, very tight. Won't spoil the surprises, but they work well. They play with your expectations. The ending, again, not too many specifics, but I think it needs to be condensed. I think it would be punchier if it didn't go for a certain thing that takes too long. Would just provide more punch in my mind. But this is certainly a worthy entry in the film and the series. Next is Fun Size. 4 adults go trick-or-treating and happen upon a seemingly vacant house with a bowl of candy saying 1 per person. Candy in the bowl sure is strange though. This is helmed by Casper Kelly, the director of several Adult Swim properties, including Too Many Cooks. This should give you a sort of idea of what kind of film it is, right? This is one of the very tongue-in-cheek ones. It's a little meta at times, it's unapologetically silly, but it's also not shying away from the brutality of the series. There are good ideas, but also some strange villains and unsatisfying character resolutions, and one very satisfying character resolution, actually. The main issue I have, which, I don't know, maybe you can blame it on the movie, maybe you can just blame it on me, is that it felt like there were cooler ideas on the table that the film did not go with. It kind of felt like it went with the least interesting possibility. There's a point where I thought we might get like a campy sort of a Saw dilemma, which would have been fun. Didn't go with that. There's a point where it felt to me like maybe we were going to go with the quality of one of those video games where you're like alone in an abandoned hallway or whatever, and you're running from something, whatever, like Lunch Lady or something like that. Didn't go with that either. So maybe maybe it's the problem with my expectations, but I just felt let down by what the movie decided to put out there. Certainly some good humor, though. The humor is the strength, but this was probably my second least favorite segment. Fourth is Kidprint. Tim Kaplan runs a store which records tapes of kids before Halloween for reference in case of abduction. This Halloween, the police have need of one of his tapes. I think this is the best segment. It might feel a little bit tonally out of place in the movie because it's the most hardcore, I guess if you could say. Like, it's played the most serious. It is the most affecting, which is certainly not a bad thing, but most of the rest of them are like a little bit goofy. This one has barely any levity in it. I don't know if this deserves a trigger warning for sure, but kids go through a lot in this one. So if you're sensitive to kids being in danger, you might need to skip this one. This has the best performance in the film and just overall a great horror performance, not even just for this series. I'll say this about it. If you've got kids being harmed, then that automatically presses certain buttons in people, right? Like, people don't want to see kids harmed. There's a reason they don't really show that on screen. But the performance is accentuating that idea beyond simply just presenting something disturbing. It's taking the disturbing element and it's doing something with it, making it a little bit special for the movie. It has the slightest tinge of humor, which actually is mostly just one specific joke, which was really funny. One of the funniest jokes in the movie. By and large, played very straight, and it is the more disturbing for it. I think the weakness is also the strength in a sense. I think the kid footage would be better, more effective if it was more concise. I don't even need it to be tamed down, really. I might rather cut some of the screaming filler and stuff like that and leave just the punchy stuff to hit harder. Because the more footage you have, the more it just feels like it is there just for shock and just to press buttons. So if you've got less of it and it's more associated with like the performance and the character, then to me that feels like it hits harder, still has the impact, and it doesn't feel as cheap as if there's just like as much of that footage as there is right now. But regardless, I think this is a high point in the film, even if it is definitely the toughest to watch. Last one is called Home Haunt. Home Haunt is about a father-son duo working on this year's haunted house against the adolescent son's wishes. It's a short film, but it does have just enough time to work in a fun family dynamic and some fun family relationships. The dad is so well cast. I think he's got a great dad voice, a great haunted house voice as well. This is another entry with a good sense of humor, especially with that one neighbor and a sequence in the store as well. This also, I think, has the only good ending in the film, as it actually does show some restraint and it doesn't just continue on too long like half of them do. It was probably out of necessity though, because I don't know how much more they could do to show the thing they were showing. It works. Constraints can be benefits. It's your classic haunted house goes out of control type of deal, but it has enough character and personality to make it a fun watch. So this is the overall segment ranking, I guess, something like that. I also think this is the best in the series so far, which is damning with faint praise because I think it's just like a little bit more than okay. But regardless, this is nice that at this point in the series, right, 8 movies in, you can still have something that you could consider to be the best. After VHS Beyond last year, I said that I wasn't going to watch another one of these. Of course, here I am again. This year, I am not saying that, so that's progress.